Hi guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the Murmuring Mystic himself, Reese.
Hello.
Definitely getting lazy with those names, I'm not going to lie to you. So Paul, what have you been up to this week?
Unfortunately not played any Pauper. I know, it's disappointing really. We had a Star Champs locally, that was modern. I don't really play much modern. I'm not a massive fan of modern after Modern Horizons, but I ended up building Affinity for that the night before. And went undefeated with it, so that went very well. And I've had a look at Pioneer as well. It seems like if you want to go to any events consistently, they're like mostly Pioneer or Modern.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not massively sold on the format. I've been playing the red white Pia deck just because it's basically like Pauper mono red. You play all the impulses and stuff. So, but it just feels a bit artificial. Like the format as a whole, it feels very sort of designed rather than natural. But hey ho, it's what we've got if we want to go a large amount of events.
Yeah, very true, unfortunately.
Hopefully you can carry us and play some Pauper this past week.
Yeah, I've definitely brewed more than I've played, unfortunately, this week, but just for those listening on Spotify, I shook my head in disappointment when he said he hadn't played any Pauper, just to let you all know. But yeah, so I have brewed a lot of I'd say a lot of random decks, as you are well aware, because our WhatsApp is very much me sending you deck lists and you reacting to them in a negative way, and I just get his hand. Is generally how it goes. But yeah, and I must admit, looking at these lists and playing the lists that I have played, these Commander Masters cards definitely do deliver. They are powerful, but one thing that I have noticed is a lot of these, like all that glitters decks or dread return piles, or even cryptic seven to an extent, they definitely don't self build as much as I expected. I kind of have expected, oh, it's alright, just play Esper or Jeskai Affinity and just jam all that glitters in there and you're kind of sorted. But
Yeah.
it's definitely not the case. The card's powerful, um, and it's just it just shows that there is a lot of work still to go. So it's not exactly Pauper 2.0 yet, but it's definitely getting there once it's figured out, because that's the hard part, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. If they basically feel to me like they either slide into a deck instantly or you need to make a full new deck for them.
Hmm.
And obviously the new decks aren't as clear as we expected.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but yeah, it does seem interesting.
But yeah, it was definitely so. I would definitely keep an eye out, because I've seen a lot of grinders and players obviously working on these different builds. So there is definitely a lot of stuff coming the way, but it's just if they transition through to challenges and obviously leagues for sure.
Mhm.
So, anyways, should we move on to some news?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, do you want me to let you cover the PFP news since it's your bag?
Yeah, I guess so. It was in my hot takes for a few weeks that we're going to get some PFP comments. But yeah, basically not a whole lot of news, but some nice information from Emma, who is on the PFP.
Mm-hmm.
Basically that they're just now seeing how Commander Masters is going to shake out. So I expect we won't see any comments for a good few weeks, probably 3 or 4 weeks, to let that shake out a bit more. But I sort of get where they're coming from. I'm not commenting. It's quite hard at the moment in Pauper with having sort of a really impactful set in Lord of the Rings and then a really impactful set of Commander Masters.
Mm.
And then we're going to go to Eldraine, and literally between each of those sets, there's a month. So you're getting essentially, 3 to 4 weeks of people brewing, and then there's more cards.
Yeah, I think
So
my
it's a bit
only
of a hard one.
my only thing about that is that, don't get me wrong, formats will change, especially that have done with Lord of the Rings and they will do with Commander Masters.
Yeah.
But then there's only so many times they can use the, oh well, we'll see how blah 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 set
Yeah.
pans out, because yes, they are obviously going to impact the set, but let's be realistic, they are going to add new options, not
Yeah.
not to the point of, oh, it's okay, mono red's now not this big player, or Affinity's now not this big player because Troll is now in like legal. Like, that is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a tough one though, because as soon as you set that precedent, you're like, I can't remember which set the first set it on, but when they're like, oh, well, this new set's coming out, we're going to see how it shakes out, and then comment. As soon as you say that once, you're like sort of committed into saying it for every set.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, as you say, is probably not the greatest place to be, but at least they've, or one member anyway, has come and said, oh, this is what we're doing currently. It's nice to have that bit of an update, even if there's no immediate comment.
Definitely. Moving on, so we've got some tournament news. Two things. First, we'll get the most important one because it's obviously near and dear to us. The Northern Pauper Open has been announced on Sunday. Was announced for Sunday, the 8th of October at Geek Retreat, Leeds. This event is capped at 64 players. The pre-sale tickets have gone online, so I would definitely recommend getting those tickets if you can. Every single time they've done it, they've broke the record for an English Pauper event. So I think they were at 50 something last time. So 64 is definitely not out of the question, and I would definitely recommend clicking on the Facebook link below, either in this Spotify description or YouTube description, or even just search Northern Pauper Open on Facebook, and you will definitely find it. And it'll give you that link to pre-buy the tickets. I would definitely recommend doing it because it is most likely going to cap and sell out.
Yeah, I would assume so. It's a great event. Obviously, we've been to two. Unfortunately, we couldn't go to the last one. We might get to this one, but we're still unsure. But yeah, it's a fantastic event. If you can go, I would definitely recommend going. And I'm almost certain it'll reach capacity.
Definitely. And it'll run like clockwork, as they generally always tend to, because Dan is on it like a rocket.
Very well run.
Finally, for those that haven't seen, Paupergeddon has gone international. So what that means is basically they have decided to do their LPI, or the League Pauperitalia, I think it stands for, where basically they have certain local game stores of a certain capacity, and if you reach that capacity, I think it's like 16 players plus, you can then eventually join this league. You have to follow their comprehensive rules, and you can get like buys and things for Paupergeddon. The Paupergeddon event, it's the next Paupergeddon event at the time. So, for example, if you were to do it now, I think it's for the November one in Rome, I think it was announced that.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So they have announced that basically they've currently added 35 cities, I think, or 35 different local game stores across Europe. And they've had a lot of requests for the UK. I'm unsure if they're doing the America just yet. I don't believe they are, but if you are interested and have a local game store that would interested to be as part of the LPI, you just need to send an email to an email address, which is lpauperitalia@gmail.com, and they will send over the comprehensive rules and what you need to do to become part of the LPI and get involved for that road to Paupergeddon. I will put obviously the email address you need to contact in this description again, in the Spotify and YouTube description. So please check those out for both of those, because there is potential for obviously Paupergeddon to grow, and yeah, it'd be good to see. I can also put the Reddit post. I think there's a Reddit link. I can put that as well down there. So the description is gonna be stacked. So yeah, check it out. And I think that's enough for the news, I believe.
Yeah.
Pretty much covered it. So anyways, guys, so that is us for the news. We will move on to Saturday, the 5th of August challenge.
Yeah, it was, to be fair, both challenges this week were pretty interesting, pretty sort of different from the norm. So Saturday, first place was Boris Synth. Second place was Affinity. Third and fourth was a blue-red Fair and a Cold Off the Red. And then 5th through 8th was a blue-black Terror. A blue-black, I've called it Mystic Terror. Basically blue-black Terror with the Mystic, Murmur Mystic, from Commander Masters. And then a Boros Synth and a Jeskai Ephemerate. And then the near misses, 9th and 10th. 9th was Prowess Burn. And 10th was, I've called it Boros Glitters. Essentially a Boros Synth deck, but modified to run all the glitters. So there wasn't a huge amount making the top 8 for Commander Masters cards. There was the Mystics in Weber's Blue Black Terror deck. that was basically it for the top 8. And obviously the big 3 still represented in normal Blue Black Terror, Affinity, and Cold Offer. But pretty spicy to see Boris Synth doing well again. It sort of exploded out of Paupergeddon, like the last Paupergeddon, and then was pretty much nowhere to be seen on Magic Online results.
Yeah. It's definitely nice to see, as you say. It must have. I can't really describe what it is. It literally must have some sort of good matchup on really clunky decks. I'm assuming like misbuilt decks. So it must be like, because obviously it is very. I believe the list was quite aggressive as well. That came first.
Yeah, I sort of was hedging on calling these Boros Burn when I was writing the notes, because they do like all the, well, we'll see some more later, but they're running 4 Lightning Bolts, 4 Galvanic Blasts, and multiple Foundry Helix. So pretty stacked on the burn, and then with makeshift munitions in the main as well.
Yeah. It's definitely a strong one, and it definitely is a lot lower curve as well. I think they seem to stop at like sort of like 2-ish, apart from the Foundry Helix. So it's pretty nice to see. Obviously Lembas as well, doing quite well in some of the lists too. But it's I think is probably why it did so well. I'm imagining is due to the potential of, obviously, maybe it's got a good Terra matchup, maybe it's got a good Affinity matchup, I'm assuming, as well, with obviously Dust to Dust and all that, and Casting the Fires.
Yeah,
So,
I think the slower decks you can outgrind. Where I found it struggles when I was playing it was like the mono red matchup. You have to like stack in so many cards to like make that matchup feel favoured. But yeah, I can definitely see it being favoured against Affinity, or able to compete with Affinity. I'm not sure anything's really favoured against Affinity. And same with Terra. You can outgrind. You've got a lot of chumpers. And you can burn them out pretty efficiently if they don't get a Fangs online.
Yeah, and you've also got Journeys as well, which are pretty good at dealing with the threats anyways, to be honest. So, but my main takeaway from this as well is, obviously, we didn't have a lot of Commander Masters cards in there. We had obviously 2 Mystics in the Weber's Terror list, which I don't think he said he was sold, but he definitely wanted to try it out. Obviously did well for him. Obviously we had the 10th place All That Glitters deck as
I
well.
actually think that was wrong. I think I've done that wrong on notes. It looks like to me 10th place was actually Prowess Burn. I think it's 12th place was All the Glitters.
It's even sadder.
Yeah. I think 9th and 10th was actually another Blue Black Terror, but like a stock one, and Prowess Burn. That's my bad.
But anyways, as I say, like a 12, still it was a Hamuda with a 12th place All That Glitters deck. Which obviously is just like a Boros build that's kind of lent heavier into the artifact lands and all that sort of stuff.
I guess we've got that as our deep dive deck, so we may as well go into that now.
Yeah, can do.
Yeah, so as Teasdale's just said, our deep dive for the Saturday decks is Hamuda's 12th place deck, which I've called Boros Glitters, but I'm not entirely sure what he would call it. It's sort of a take on the Boros Synth engine, but tweaks it up quite a lot. The mana base is very different. It basically maxes out on the artifact lands, the 4 jewels, and then the 4 red and the 4 white artifact lands. Has 4 Frogmites in the main, which obviously most Boros Synth decks don't. And also uses Wedding Invitations as the 2 mana sort of artifact cantrip of choice. Basically to pair with 4 All the Glitters. Getting buffed off your artifact lands, getting buffed off your Synths, your Bad Fists, your Frogmites, and even your sort of your Journeys and your makeshift munitions.
Yeah, I really do like this deck. So I've played like a bit of like Jeskai Affinity, which is sort of the similar vein to this, in the sense that it's a Core Skyfisher Glint Hawk engine with experimental synthesizer. And I've also tested Walker's list. They were playing like a Jeskai Affinity, kind of again similar-ish vein. And the one thing that did come out to me, like when I was looking at it or even playing it, was basically that Wedding Invitation is that 2 mana artifact slot. the Lembas or the Eco Wellspring or the Golden Egg or whatever slot you want to call it. Like that with all that glitters is key. And to be honest, if you're a white based deck, like a white based artifact deck that's from all that glitters, that's basically your slot is 4 all that glitters and 3 to 4 wedding invitations is all you really need, plus any sort of engine you want to go. You can go obviously blue white, red white probably, obviously red white here, red white blue, all that sort of stuff, because when an invitation with all that glitters just lets you just win games you had no right winning whatsoever.
And it has no real downside because
No.
you can still get your Glinthawk, Core Skyfisher engine going with it. It's I guess not as good as Ica Wellspring because you don't get the draw if you sack it to your munitions, but that's not really a huge issue. The upside for the unblockable is obviously miles better.
And you obviously, like, so in the sense of like the Core Skyfisher, you don't get Scry if it was a Lembas, for example. But other than that, like, but the upside of I get to win games I had no right winning is definitely much better than the occasional Scry one. So it's definitely a strong engine. It's nice to see that this kind of deck exists or has the potential to exist. The interesting thing is, I would wonder if they want to go, how heavy they want to go on the artifacts. Obviously, they've went heavier, but they're still not fully committed on the artifact line. They haven't got to the extent of like Dark still sitting or adding another colour.
It's definitely not maxed out. As you say, you could get it to a point where you're running like Mirroring Forces and stuff as well, I suppose, and sort of go more like red-white affinity. But it very much does retain the sort of Boros Synth shell, and then just tweaks the numbers where you can in the mana base, and then adds the Frogmites to sort of up that artifact count a little. I imagine that all the glitters will usually just be sort of not a one-hit kill unless you double them up. But when you've got 4 Gal Blasts and 4 Bolts as well alongside it, it's sort of, you can get them. Yeah,
definitely. And I do like the idea of obviously just having all that glitters as you played a Boros deck, so you're generally getting your value, as you say, with your experimental synthesizers, all that sort of stuff, and then it's just, okay, you've tapped out, so you can't do this. Okay, all that glitters attack. You know, you get that mass amount of damage, and that all you need is that. Most likely in a deck like this, you'll need that one big hit with all that glitters, and then they're open for a Galv Blast and a Lightning Bolt, or even just a all-out swing with all your bad Battlefist tokens or your Core Skyfish or whatever, and finish them off.
I guess it's sort of in that aspect, it plays just like a huge 2-mana burn spell. It's really cool list. Obviously, really good to see new cards making not quite the top 10, but very close in 12. And one, I was sort of excited by your Jeskai Affinity list last week that you ran in our local event, and this sort of, as cool as that was, it felt very untuned, whereas this sort of, although it's probably not very tuned, it looks a lot more like ready to go, basically.
Yeah. The bonus of basically having that Boros synth deck and basically just jamming 4 all that glitters in there is definitely great. Like, as you say, it just feels that little bit more tuned because it's basically a Pauper deck that's kind of changed the mana base to have more artifact lands and have some all that glitters. And then you've took out some Lembas or Ica Wellsprings and added in some Wedding Invitations. Yeah. So it definitely feels that little bit better. I guess just on the sideboard as well is a pretty spicy one. So there's 3 red Elemental Blast, which are fairly obvious. The 3 relics, because you can't go home without them because Terra's everywhere. You've got 2 journeys as well, just for those bigger creatures like Terra, which is a pretty good one. 1 prismatic strands, which is, I guess you do have a lot of white creatures. Obviously, you've got 12 white creatures, right?
Yeah.
Are the red
the tokens are red off the Battlefist,
so I guess that's kind of a pretty good one. It's also not the worst if you expect some random spy decks as well. Just throwing it out there. You never know. And then there's 2 Revoke Existence for some affinity, and I'm assuming like some Bogles or all that glitters piles.
Yeah.
2 Dawnbringers again for, I would guess, burn, as well as all that glitters Bogles piles. And then 2 Cast into Fire, which are good against obviously 1/1s and also artifacts. So it kind of keeps its options open because you're not 100% sure what to expect either, because there could have been a lot of Bogles, there could have been a lot of White Heroic, there could have been a lot of, obviously all that Glitters decks, could have been a lot of Affinity as well.
Yeah.
And still got to fight the metagame that there was before as well. It's a pretty nice one.
Yeah, it's cool. I think this challenge in general was sort of a bit different from what we have been used to. There's obviously a bit less terror. There's still a lot of terror in the top 10. Threes is still a significant amount. But yeah, seeing those two Boros Synth decks in first and 6th or 7th, and then another in 12th, it's something a bit different making it up there. And Blue Red Fair as well, sort of something that seems to be having a bit of a resurgence lately. Scred's obviously really strong at the moment, so it can carry it as with I guess the Jeskai Ephemerate deck.
Looking at it, it had 3 Delvers in there as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, in the Fair deck, yeah, it was a sort of a more old school build with just the 1 Admiral and 1 Commodore alongside 3 Delvers, no terrors.
Yeah, interesting, and along with 2 Ponders as well, so it must felt like they have enough shuffle effects, I guess. And I guess Ponder's a lot better at flipping Delvers and things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but yeah, pretty cool to see. Obviously the standard one of Jeskai Ephemerate as well. Got to make it into a top 8. It's a rule at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those decks. It's obviously just really strong, but I can't imagine it's the most fun deck to play constantly.
Very true.
Obviously, there's a lot of rounds in a challenge, so you have to be pretty stymied to be ready to grind with Jeskai Ephemerate.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see them pretty much weekly now in one of the 2 challenges. There'll be a Jeskai Ephemerate making the top 8.
Yeah.
It's probably not on the same sort of playing field as Kuldoffer, Affinity and Terra, but it's up in one of the better decks in Pauper.
Yeah. Would you like to move on to the Sunday challenge?
Yeah, definitely. Sunday, 6th of August, it was another probably more interesting one, although there was sort of a bit less variance. First place, White Weenie.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Second place, Blue Red Terror. Third and fourth was a Prowess Burn and a Blue Red Fair again. And then 5th through 8th was 3 Boros Synths and a Heroic. And then the near misses this time. 9th was Kuldoffer Red, and 10th was another Boros Synth. So I think first and foremost, White Weenie getting the dub. Finally.
Woohoo! Yeah,
we've seen it week in, week out, just getting in there. Finally got the first place, which is great to see.
Yeah, and again, fairly stock looking White Weenie too. Not really any changes to the main deck, and obviously the sideboard to me doesn't look anywhere out of place.
No, not at all. Just showing how strong the deck actually is, and obviously it's pretty unchanged for quite a while now. It just needs people to take it seriously. Challenge winning White Weenie.
Yeah, hopefully we might get some more next week with obviously the win.
Yeah. I guess other interesting points for me. Medvedev coming 8th with Heroic. Sort of a bit of a different take on Heroic as well, sort of similar to how we had a different take on the Mono Red Shell. He's basically cut all the hexproof cards as just basically 4 Emergent Scathed as his only protection, I guess.
Yeah.
Other than like sorcery speed enchantments. Also a one of Miser's Lotus Spell. So always fun to see in aggro decks like this.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet one because they've cut. Looking at this, the 2 mana 1/1 heroic card. So the only heroic card is the Trailblazer.
Yeah, basically all the threats cost 1, or all the creatures cost 1. There's Vault Scourge, but essentially that costs 1. 4 Trailblazers, 4 Vault Scourge, 4 Bodyguards, I guess is protection, and then 4 Deathblade Elite and 2 Sacred Cats.
Yeah.
But that's sort of, I guess, you don't need the Heroic as much while you've got all the glitters in your deck, as well as 4 Ethereal Armors. You've got that hard-hitting power from basically nowhere.
Yeah. And obviously having 4 Vault Scourge and 2 Sacred Cats and a Spirit Link are all pretty good against dealing with the red decks and getting out of burn range pretty quickly. They've obviously got, there's quite a few, like, you've obviously got the power and the big toughness from obviously all the 8 ethereal armor effects with the all that glitters and the obviously ethereal armors. You've got like the weird protection from Hyena number 2,
Yeah.
which I wouldn't be surprised if it manages to just steal some games. It's pretty sweet. And basically everything costs 1, right? Bar like the all that glitters and then the 1 benevolent blessing.
Yeah, it's a very low to the ground. Well, similar to the take on Mono Red, an extremely low to the ground version of an existing archetype. Just cool to see a new way to build a deck.
Yeah, I really like the take on this as well. It's basically cut all the chaff, make everything cost 1 is a nice concept. I also like the 15 lands and 4 ancient dens are included in that, just in case you need to get that extra buff off the all that glitters.
Yeah,
which is pretty sweet. Definitely cool one to see.
A final point on this: a card I have not seen in a sideboard before. Death Speakers for the Amisham and black removal matchups.
Yeah.
It's basically 1 white for a 1/1 with pro black, and that's it. But yeah, for Homeland's All-Star Death Speakers making an appearance.
Do love some Death Speakers.
And then I guess my final point on this top 8 would be Boros Synth. There's absolutely loads, and it's all stock Boros Synth as well. Yeah. There's no new cards in it. It's just stock Boros Synth, or I guess more like we said before, Boros Burn, because they're all pretty high on burn spells.
Yeah, some of them are like kind of Pauper getting Boros Synth, like Batfists and Ica Wellsprings and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, some of them are very much low to the ground, very aggressive kind of takes on it. Like one of them, I think, one of them has 4 Swift Spears in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is very, very aggressive. But yeah, cool to see that finally, as we've said in the past couple of weeks, it had real issues converting a lot into the top 8. And it's just clearly just built up that much that it just went, oh, here you go, have a bunch. But yeah, it's definitely nice to see. And as we mentioned, to be fair, I guess my thing is, as we mentioned last week, there is a lot of, all that glitters was probably the easiest one that just slides right into decks. And it's definitely shown with obviously Medvedev in Heroic, and then also in, as I say, on the Saturdays as well with the 12th place Moda list. And it's nice to see that it's, it's powerful, obviously. It's obviously been in other decks, and it's great to see it in Heroic. Probably Bogles as well, I think, in obviously a lot of the top 32.
Yeah, I think this Sunday especially, there was, I think, 3 Bogles decks I noticed in the top 32, all playing multiple all the glitters. I'm almost certain they were all on 4, in fact. But yeah, it's an obvious place to slot that card.
Yeah.
And doing well, because the past few weeks, Bogles has been pretty downtrodden. So it's nice to see a bit of a resurgence.
I guess it might have a lot of impact on, I guess, with Terra, i.e. Terra being in the format quite heavily, and also against Terra. Like, there's a lot of Chainer's Edicts knocking around, especially at least in people's sideboards. And I guess it just has little bit of splash damage. So I guess having a 2-mana Ancestral Mask in effect allows them to be that little bit aggressive and maybe get under a lot of people's Chainers.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's nice to see, and hopefully we'll see some more Heroics, see some more Bogles in the coming weeks. I guess we'll move on to the deep dive, I guess.
Yeah.
So I went with Weber, who was on Pinger Burn. So obviously top 8'd on the Saturday with Blue Black Terror with Murmur Mystic, and then decided to completely pick up a completely different deck and still top 32. So this deck is basically just I don't want to say bog standard Pinger Burn, because it's definitely not
that. It's definitely not.
But it's so it's running 4 Monastery Swift Spear, 4 Kessig Flame Breather, and then 4 Gutter Snipes as the creature base, with 4 Rite of Flames and 8 Reckless Impulse effects. The 4 Reckless Impulse and the 4 Rends Resolve, along with 2 Faithless Loons as well, just for that increased draw. And then the 4 Chain Lightning, 4 Lightning Bolt as you expect, 3 extra lava spikes as that kind of 1 mana bolt, 4 lava darts, and then 1 fire blast to kind of round it off with 18 mountains. So it's a pretty solid take on it, I guess. Interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I really do like this take on. I don't know about Got a Snipe. Don't know. It was not my first place when I was singing. This is going in here. That is for sure. But it's definitely a cool one. It's cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the cards from Commander Masters that we didn't really expect to see in the first week or so. But yeah, especially alongside Right Flame, it does seem to fit quite nicely in this sort of shell. Lava Dart and Gutter Snipe is absolutely ridiculous.
Definitely.
Obviously, it's good with the 2 mana pingers they've got, but when you're bolting them for 1 mana and then sacking them out and bolting them again for no mana, like you're getting 6 damage out of essentially 1 card. It's nuts.
Yeah, it definitely seems to add up, and I guess with obviously the 4 Reckless Impulse and the 4 Rend Resolve, you can kind of, as we've kind of come to know with Mono Red, especially Pinger Burn, they can just throw cards at a wall and just hope.
Yeah.
And this kind of shows, obviously, with 4 Gut Snipe, 4 Right Flame, you just put these in the deck, and sometimes you'll just get carried by the standard Swift Spear, Flame Breather. Here's a bunch of draw twos, and then sometimes you'll just Gut Snipe and just throw a lot of bolts at them. They'll be dead, like kind of old school Burn. Because as you said, turning these Gut Snipes and Lava Darts into deal 6 for 1 card is really strong.
Yeah. I think the addition of Faithless Looting as well sort of solidifies that point that it's just going to throw cards at a wall. It just wants to get rid of these extra mountains that it draws.
Yeah.
And find any spell essentially. It's basically irrelevant what spell you find.
Yeah.
Just as long as it's a spell and not a mountain.
Yeah, because as well, like the big thing as well that we've obviously noticed with the Pinger Burn side is once you basically get to 2 mana, is you've got all the lands you could possibly want. You will most likely be hitting your land drops every turn for the rest of the game because you see that many cards with Reckless Impulse and Rend Resolve and what was Experimental Synthesizer in like normal Pinger Burn. You can kind of I'd say you could even hold a Gutter Snipe if you're worried about removal. Wait till you get 6, 7 lands, which to be honest wouldn't really be too far out the question, and then just chuck a bunch of bolts, which are now lava axes. You'll need 4 of them.
Yeah, I think especially when you have the 4 lava darts, that plan it does make a lot of sense. Yeah, basically, are hitting every land in burn nowadays. If it's a burn playing the 8 impulse effects.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could basically just get up to 5 lands, play your Gutter Snipe, and then bolt lava dart them or something.
Yeah. Definitely a strong one. And quite a simple sideboard too. Literally just 4 Smash the Smithereens, 4 Pyroblasts, 4 End the Festivities, 3 Relic of Progenus. All
a very burn sideboard.
Yeah. Very straightforward, like no raises, but to be fair, with a deck probably with this many bolts, I wouldn't be surprised if you really needed to raise anything. But I guess Smash kind of opens up options because you expect maybe all that glitters decks and, assuming they are affinity based. And then End the Festivities kind of carries the Bogglesy side-ish, plus Kuldotha, plus all the other, White Weenie, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a solid burn sideboard, and you'd basically just pick in 3 of the best red sideboard cards and 3 relics. Can't go wrong with that, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I guess that's. I don't know if we'll carry on with Pinger Burn looking like this moving forward. Like I don't know if Gutter Snipe makes it into the final Pinger Burn list, but it is pretty big.
Yeah, I think at least something to take away from it is there's still space in the burn archetype. Obviously, everyone's pretty sick of Swift Spear by now. But one thing it has done is like burn is not just one deck anymore. It's like 5 decks.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing. There just keeps get like more and more versions of burn. I'm not sure that's entirely a good thing, but it's better than just getting burned like Kuldotha out every game.
Yeah. Weird thing as well for me, from just a general thought, is when you think of like these 4 or 5 burn archetypes, or even different takes on the specific ones that we think of. I'm thinking, well, apart from one drops and a probably extent, like the mono red Medvedev one drop kind of burn
Yeah, yeah,
list, I'd say that probably gets hurt the most by losing Swift Spear, but the rest most likely still exist and still not as strong because obviously Swift Spear is a very, very strong card, but still definitely has potential. Like,
yeah, yeah.
so
I think the pinger burn, I think it affects more than you expect because the extra sort of 5 damage you probably get off a Swift Spear adds up quite a lot.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and obviously in the Medvedev one, it's pretty tough. But yeah, Cold Offer, I imagine will still be just a really strong deck if Swift Spear gets banned.
yeah.
I don't think it'll mind that much.
No, like that's what I mean. They definitely get worse. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, just they still can easily exist. Like it has had so many new cards over the past year that you could easily exist without just Switch Spear there for sure. And it's definitely a sweet one. Sweet to see. It is nice to see different takes on red, as much as people are hating on Switch Spear. But there we go. So should we move on to some shout outs, I guess?
Yeah, if you got some, yeah.
Yeah, just one this week, I think. We've kind of already said it, but shout out to Weber again. They keep top 32 and showing that they're playing the format as PFP and also playing new spicy cards, Gut Snipe and Murmur Mystic. It's definitely nice to see. And that's kind of it from the shout outs, I guess.
Yeah.
Would you like to move on from the hot takes?
Yeah, definitely. So hot take from last week. My first one was a pretty free one, I guess. Was that we'll see a lot of new cards. Although we didn't really see them in the top 8, we've seen a lot sort of down the top 32. There was a lot of decks with all the glitters. There was a lot of decks Trial and Murmur Mystic. Obviously, got a snipe here and there. Probably not as much as I would have expected.
Not me as
Um,
well,
but they were there. Obviously, all the glitters is the easiest one. Slots into a lot of decks for free. But hopefully, in the next coming weeks, we see more sort of development and trial of these new cards.
yeah, I think it kind of stems from, as I say, we didn't see as many as we thought, but I think more when we got our hands on the cards and actually started playing with them, they're not kind of self building as well. Mainly me, I definitely thought there were a lot of
Yeah,
them would be self building. You know, like Cryptic Seven just slides right into Terra. Not
yeah,
as much as I thought. Um, all that glitters slides right into certain decks, all that sort of stuff. It's clearly not as clean cut as what I thought it was. But definitely, we will hopefully, well, not hopefully, we most likely will see more in the coming weeks.
yeah.
For sure. So my hot take was Storm or One Land Spy will be in the top 32, which, to be fair, was true. Spy came 26th on the Saturday. There was obviously neither of those in the top 32. I was kind of throwing a stab in the dark with Storm. If by some miracle someone managed to have a perfect looking Storm list from week 1, I'd have been impressed.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I guess the One Land Spy was fairly easy in the sense that it's a lot more of an easier cut for the convoys. It just makes it a lot cleaner than the current hot pile that they had previously.
Yeah, definitely.
So
There was a surprising amount of just random combo decks in the top 32. None of them sort of got very high. But like you said, there was a Spy. There was, I seen, a Poison Storm. A couple of Turbo Fogs. Um, a Walls. I might say 2 Walls actually. So yes, combo is still there. Although it's definitely been downtrodden a bit this week.
yeah. Just to clarify, it was 3 Land Spy as well. Just to
Not 2 Land Spy or 1 Land Spy.
yeah. Just to clarify. So yeah, that was I'd say 50% there.
Yeah.
But kind of called it at the same time.
My second one was that the brewing space will open a lot more than it is currently. I sort of feel like this again was sort of a bit of a weak one, to be honest, from my part. It does feel like the brewing space from Lord of the Rings itself is still opening up. We've seen a lot of people like try and reanimate decks and like cascade reanimator decks and all this sort of thing. And I feel like the Commander Masters cards being added onto that has just blew it open quite a bit more. Like you see with these gutter snipe decks and Murmur and Mystics going in like blue red terrors, blue red fears, blue black terrors. And like all the glitters, heroic versions and stuff like that. So that there is a lot of space there. And I think you can do well with a lot of brews, but they do seem more like shells that you've brewed with the shell rather than straight up brews.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it is cool.
It is nice that you see, as you say, and it's nice that you get like different. As you say, you've now got like Boros synth, and then you're like Boros glitters, which is just, as I say, it's just extra space that you can just have, which obviously makes it interesting in a lot of things. Like even as of recently, we've seen obviously Walls combo and now Walls Cascade. It's just the brewing space for those sort of like you are taking a shell, but obviously it still opens up brewing space, which is great to see. I guess mine was a bit bold, let's be honest. This last one was definitely a bold one, which was week 1, we will have a new combo deck in the top 8. And I kind of like to put this sort of thing out there anyways. Like, say a new set comes out, I definitely like to go all off the wall. It's nice to see, because sometimes, as you might have seen over the years, you'll get like a new like absolute new pile that's just like, oh my god, here you go, and you'll just break out a challenge or break out a tournament, and you just kind of got to cover yourself. So I was kind of hoping that something spicy would come down, but clearly didn't happen. No one on the Wind Rider Wizard or Gutter Snipe Storm or anything like that just of yet.
Yeah, or even Reanimator, I suppose, if there was like a Cascade Reanimator or something like that, yeah.
But yeah, it's been nice to see, but we just got to cover our options. We will get a new combo deck soon. By the end of this news, before, what's the next set called?
Wilds of Eldraine.
Before that, we will have a new combo deck.
In a month.
In a month.
Yeah, so hot takes for next week then, I guess.
Yeah.
So my first one was, again, I think a pretty free one, to be honest, that we're going to see a lot more Commander Masters cards making top 8s. We saw very few actually in the top 8 from these two challenges. I think there was 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday or something like that. It wasn't very high at all. But I do expect decks like the Boros Glitters, like a blue-red Terror with Serpent or Mystic in to start getting built to a point where they can do well and challenge the top dogs for a top 8 spot.
Yeah. Definitely. I hope that just it makes sense, to be fair. These cards are too powerful not to see play. So it just takes that time to eventually people find where they want to put them, and they will probably, well, they'll most likely feature in the top 8. So mine's FAMS is going to make a return, because we've discussed combo decks.
Yeah.
Being doing really well, and I think basically one's going to top 8 next week's challenge, one of next week's challenges, and it'll either include Wind Rider Wizard, I think that's what it's called, Wind Rider Wizard, or Murmur Mystic. And I've seen people do well with them, both lists, with Wind Rider Wizard and also with Murmur Mystic in. Murmur Mystic at the moment seems the most popular. Seems like a nice one to have. Works well with Meeting of Minds, which we've also seen in FAMs as well.
I suppose, especially on Modo, the Murmur Mystic gives you that sort of instant kill condition where you don't have to combo off forever. Like, you don't have to clock yourself. You can basically end a turn, mech 15 guys, and then kill them.
Yeah. I think it's kind of, it fits quite nicely into that, like, kind of Sage Road Denizen kind of slot. But then it's just good when you're not comboed off. Which I think is the big...
play it as a value piece.
Yeah. So it's definitely pretty sweet to see. And that's kind of what I think FAMS is going to top 8. And it's going to, it probably is going to be GN, let's be honest. But, you know, we'll see.
My second one, I guess, second of the new hot takes. We'll see more top 8s like Sundays, where basically a deck outside the de facto top 3 of Affinity, Mono Red, and Blue Black Terror dominates, basically like Boros has done this Sunday. So yeah, basically we'll see top 8s where we have a lot of a deck that's not one of these top 3 decks that we're used to seeing all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. Or even just to me, like a spatter, like a lot of like different, not necessarily like Sunday was with like 3 Boros Synth or whatever it was, but maybe even just more none of those 3, which would be great. I'm just so happy about like having maybe even one of those 3 as an 8 and then 7 like spicy piles. Doesn't even have to be brewed. It could be literally white weenie bogles and heroic for all I care. It doesn't really matter to me, but it's just nice to see not new, but not those 3 kind of top 8 all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
My last take is mono black / non-white reanimator. I'll expand on that a bit. We'll top 32 next weekend. So basically, there's been like a 4-color reanimator deck kind of dotting around for quite a while, and they've had to use like Late to Dinner as their 5 through 8 reanimate spell. But now with Dread Return, you get an actual reasonable costed mono black reanimator spell. So there is one that costs 5. I think it's like Summon the Undead. That card's just absolute trash. Costs 5. No. Dread Return costs 4. So much easier to cast. And you'll probably see, I don't want to say mono black, but black non-white, like black red, black green reanimator. We obviously have seen like the black green reanimate shell, I think, or black green ramp with like Utopia's Royal Arbor Elf. I wouldn't be surprised even seeing that utilised in Dread Return. Maybe even Maya Triton, because you know that's new. You know what I mean? New toys. It's got a top 32. Dread Return will top 32 in a good way next week. Beely. Card's too broken not to.
Yeah, it's a pretty busted card, to be fair. Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
So there you go. That's the hot takes for next week.
Yeah, we'll see if any of those actually hold up.
So yeah, happy to call it? Nothing else to mention?
Yeah, nothing from me.
So guys, just we've been doing this for a while, so please, if you are enjoying this podcast, please share it with your friends, family, grandma, everyone that you possibly know and love, please. We obviously love to share all our podcast information, our Pauper knowledge to any community in England, all across the world. You know, we just love it. Obviously, word of mouth's been giving us a massive influx of listeners, so it's great to see, great to obviously, good to show, finally see that obviously this hard work for us, well, as I say, mainly Reese, is paying off. And it'd just be appreciated if obviously you can just share it with the world, really. That's all I got.
Definitely.
And again, I guess we'll reiterate, if you have obviously any events or whatever, that you think fairly large size events you've been to or whatever, please just tell the tournament organizer, or if you've organised it yourself, please just get in touch with us. Obviously, we're pretty active on Twitter, so you can happily even just tweet us at the Casting Commons Twitter page up here, which is at Casting Commons 1. You can even just tag us into it. We'll happily, if the TO wants, we'll happily cover it and look at them, not just challenges. So, yeah, that is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, and don't forget to stay hydrated.
See ya.